Okay.
Take two.
No, no take two. This is Malcolm Carter, and he just did the amazing poetry that you just saw. And with that poetry, I'm going to try to prove my point of saying that reading and writing literature is indeed included in spoken word poetry. So, to start my interview, how long have you been writing poetry?
Sixth grade.
Girl, that's pretty awesome. Why did you choose to do spoken word poetry instead of traditional poetry?
I started out writing traditional poetry. It was really kind of immature in concept. It was always there had to be a certain rhyme and rhythm to it, and each word at the end of the statement had to rhyme. It had to sound nice. But then as I grew older, I started to see people do spoken word, and I realized there was a more mature form of poetry, and when you really want to get your message across and put all your passion behind your words instead of just, like I said, weaving, beautiful words in fancy ways to please ears. It's not about that. It's about getting your message across. So
Cool.
that's pretty much why I'm trying to write spoken word now, and I'm, experimenting with it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. According to The Art of Spoken Word by Giles Nugent, sure. Once a poem is removed from the page and read aloud, it is now being read with the soul and music of the artist and has a deeper connection. Would you agree with that?
No doubt.
No doubt. Okay. Why is it okay to interject during a performance?
Interject from whom?
From the audience.
From the audience with what?
When they say yes or snap or go ahead now, stuff like that.
When you're on stage, you need some kind of reaction from the audience to make your performance better. If you're on stage performing your heart out, and the audience doesn't do things such as that, then it makes you feel as though you're all alone, and no one feels what you're saying. When they interject in that way, it makes you understand that they're understanding what you're trying to say to them, or that they're taking your poem to a meaning that's valued to them.
Okay. Why is crowd participation such a big deal?
Same thing. It just feels the dancer's performance. So I'm serious. When you're on stage and when you're doing your best. I was in a play earlier in the year, and my parents came to the show, and the piece I was doing was funny, but the audience didn't know if they were supposed to laugh or not, and they didn't. And it just frustrates actors, singers, dancers, any performer in general when they don't get the reaction that they anticipate, or any reaction at all. The audience is silent. It might as well be like they're not there and you're not performing for anyone.
That makes sense. I've actually been in a couple of dance performances where I got still faced and I wanted to cry. So I understand.
Yeah.
So, when composing a poem, what aspects are taken into consideration?
When you're making a poem, what I do first is I just write down my thoughts. I write down what's happening, and I get the raw message of what I'm actually trying to convey to my audience. And then from there, that's where you break it up into their own sentences, and you refine it to make it artistic, but at the same time you're not making it to a certain rhythm or rhyme. You don't have to rhyme words for them to be for them to appeal to the audience. You can use certain plays on words. You can speed them up, or you can use alliteration. It's one of my favorite things to do, is use alliteration, because it's not rhyming and it's not as conventional a method as rhyming, but it still pleases the audience in ways that they might not even know. So when you're composing a poem, it's really just all about getting your raw message on paper and then refining it into art.
You're right. I actually went to the rhyme thing, and there was had different processes to make a spoken word. Like some person was recording himself on a webcam, just going off, and then he put it on paper after he listened back to it, get the best ideas. And then this one girl was in the corner crying, just shouting at the wall. But she was as she got her, I guess, message out, she would start writing or whatever. So it's different. Nobody's process is the same, but I guess it all has the same final product. So where do you get your inspiration?
For poetry?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in middle school, because, okay, I'm not gonna lie, in middle school I wrote poems for women. It didn't go well, but I did it. That was the main inspiration. But now it just seems like the best way to articulate your own wisdom and your own experiences about things. So when something happens to you and you feel strongly about it, then that's the best way to do it, is with spoken word. Like I said in the poem, dance is like a new language, but not everyone can speak that language. So everyone can speak English and they can understand spoken word. So when you really want to get something across and tell a story, spoken word is the best.
That's
way to go.
really cool. Wait a minute, you said you had women in middle school? They're like 12.
All right. Well, when you're in middle school, it just kind of overwhelms you, you know. I don't know why, but they were the only inspiration I had to write for at all. When something tragic happens to me, I'll write that down, but I never really get around to writing spoken word about it. You know, this is actually the only spoken word piece that I have. All the rest of it is just random raw thoughts waiting to be refined in a notebook.
I'm glad you said that. Oh my gosh, you're proving my point. Alright, so artists included in spoken word community are considered to be a subculture. Why did you choose this particular subculture?
Spoken word as a subculture?
It is a subculture.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. It just seemed as a good outlet as an artist. You want to try to delve into as many things as you possibly can. And since I had delved into poetry as a child, as you mature, your art matures. So it was only natural to go from traditional, immature poetry into spoken word.
Okay. So, according to Amy Madison's A Verbal Aesthetic, there is no rules to writing poetry. Do you agree?
I agree.
You agree?
Wholeheartedly. Yes.
Okay. What effect does performing live have on your poetry?
On your poetry? The effect of performing live has... It's great to... Well, the first time that you perform live, it's great to get people's reaction, and also it boosts your confidence. So not in an egotistical way, but in a people actually enjoy what I'm saying, and I'm not just writing something to be full of myself. I'm actually telling a good story, and people are enjoying this. So it's very rewarding when, because as a poet, what you're trying to do is entertain. Mm-hmm. Any artist's job is to entertain and to get their message across. If you do both of those things, and the audience is showing, they're giving you that interjection that you want, and they're just showing you that you're really doing a good job, that's just all the reward that you really need.
Okay. Well, later in the same Amy Madison article, she was saying that spoken word does not exist without the live audience. And I know this is kind of controversial. So what are your thoughts on this topic?
I agree. It's almost similar to if a tree falls in the woods, will anybody hear it? No, no one will hear it. But it'll make a sound. When you're doing spoken word, of course it's not spoken word if there's not an audience, because technically you're speaking to yourself, and that just makes you certifiably insane.
I understand. I read a lot of articles, like some by that same music guy. He was saying that spoken word is for yourself, not necessarily for an audience. And a lot of other people were just like, no, it's for an audience only. So it's all about your opinion, I guess. So when a spoken word is performed, what is the purpose of snapping instead of clapping? Do you understand that function?
I don't.
Yeah, I interviewed someone yesterday, and I asked him why they snapped instead of clapping. He said because it's cooler. Because it's cooler.
It just seems more respectful, and it seems...
Wait a minute, so you can interject and interrupt somebody's poem and snap and hoot and holler, but you can't clap? You gotta...
When you're in a poetry cafe, it's not the kind of clapping environment. A clap is something that disrupts the atmosphere, and it just kind of rips through everyone's ears like...
Okay, you're right.
That resounded off of the walls and just completely disrupted my aura just now, alright? But if you snap, it's just kind of like a peaceful thing. It's almost more pleasing to the ears.
You're right, it kind of is. So, I'm not reading those questions because you just answered them. And you answered that one. Okay, so when you're out and you're on top of the stage and you're looking at everyone, how do you process their body language? How do I say this right then? Okay, does body language play an important role in spoken word, whether it's the performer or the audience?
Performers, yes. Audience, no. Honestly, if you're doing spoken word correctly, if you're doing spoken word correctly, you probably won't even see the audience.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're in a room that's lit just like this. You almost black out and just get so involved in your message. At least that's what happened Monday. I couldn't see anyone. You're looking out into nothingness, and you're just inside your own body. And if you're in that zone, then your body language will show through the message. Mm-hmm. So as you're speaking, you won't have to force anything. Everything will just come naturally. And that's almost how you can tell if someone believes something or not. It's important for the performer to have good body language, or the body language that I just described, because it's another signal to the audience that they believe in what they're saying.
Mm.
When you believe in what you're saying, it doesn't matter if you're talking about how you don't like the circles on a book bag. If you believe in what you're saying and you're passionate about what you're saying, then the audience will like it.
Okay, you're right.
You can talk about anything. The audience, nobody cares about the body language of the audience. When you're on stage performing, in most performance atmospheres, the lights are shining on you, so it impairs your vision in that way, so you can't really see them. But I don't see anything. I guess if all the audience members got up and left while you were doing it, of course that would, distract you, and you think, well, that's a jerk move. I'm not going to keep performing for these people if they don't even want to hear it. So, only in the cases of extreme versions, like if somebody passed out, then audience body language doesn't matter.
The guy yesterday was saying that he would read out, like, say if his poem he knew on the inside that it kind of sucked, he would look at the audience's body language and he would change his poem like he would freestyle, because if somebody has their head down on the table and he sees it, it's because his poem is not up to par, so he's going to completely do a 360 and flip it to a whole other type of poem to try to get the crowd back more inactive and, calling out to him and I guess giving him feedback that he needs, because otherwise he just feels like he didn't do his job as a poet. So, yeah. Okay. So, when a poem calls for crowd participation, what does that do to the poem?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never done that.
Really? Okay. Well, remember when we went to that one poem that guy had us, interact, like, with the poem? I don't understand what exactly that does to the poem. I know it changes it every single time, because yesterday I went and I interviewed someone else, and they were talking about how every time they perform a certain poem is never the same, because he might change it, like, depending on what the audience did. You know what I mean? Like, say the audience shouted like a word that he wasn't expecting. He's going to change his whole thought process to, like, pretty much answer what the crowd is calling for. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. Alright, so, I guess I have my observations done, and thank you for your interview. But now I understand exactly what spoken word does to interact with, like, language, art. Did you see that? Okay, with writing, reading, and literature. Thank you very much. Applause! You can clap for yourself. You're horrible.